The mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, is unafraid to call himself a socialist and to espouse and implement socialist policies. Now he is making it very clear that he's going to take private property and collectivize it. Classic definition of socialism, which is the government seizing the means of production.
Yeah, great to be with you both here. And Socialist Mayor New York here is Zohran Mamdani. He says that he's going to take some aggressive legal actions against these landlords if they don't get their buildings up to code. Now, what does that mean? Well, potentially, he says that he can transfer private property back to the community.
What does he mean back to the community if the community never owned it? It's kind of like when you hear gun buybacks. Well, how are you buying it back if you never owned it in the first place? Now, look, I would be the first to say that if you are a landlord, you do have a duty to your tenants to keep the property safe and habitable. Okay. That is the duty of a landlord. I will also suggest that New York City probably has a regime that is pretty onerous in terms of how it treats landlords. So there is that.
Watch this.
City Hall will rewrite a legacy of neglect with the largest city capital commitment to NYCHA in decades.
NYCHA is the New York City Housing Authority.
$5.6 billion over 5 years. And we will do all of this while ensuring that NYCHA remains publicly owned and publicly operated.
Okay, over $5 billion, he mentioned. The people cheer. I'm not sure if they are cognizant of the fact that that money is theirs. Okay, if they pay taxes, all right? And let's assume that they do pay some sort of taxes up there. There's so many taxes that have been levied on us as citizens that I'm sure even if you don't pay an income tax, you are getting caught up in the mix somehow. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I was at a community Memorial Day celebration, and we have a gentleman that is running for county executive. I'm not going to even dignify him by mentioning his name, but he was having a conversation, at the event and talking about how he was going to build these two aquatic centers. And I got to be honest with you, when I heard that, I thought he was talking about farming tilapia to maybe feed some hungry people, right? In these inflationary times. But no, what he was talking about was actually building on the taxpayers' dime two aquatic centers, one on the east side of the county, one on the west side, where people could swim. All right. And so I asked him, I said, how much is that going to cost? And, a couple of $1 million. Oh, okay. I said, and we have that just laying around? Yeah, is what he said. I said, oh, really? And then we got into a discussion about how it's not the county's money, it is taxpayers' money. And I must say, he didn't like this. He got up and left. So we see in that example, especially when we have a YMCA, and a Jewish community center, both of which have pools and both of which are extremely affordable. Why do we need, and that's just on the west side alone, okay? We already have two. Why do we need government-run aquatic centers, right? So these individuals will find a way to separate you from your hard-earned money in terms of raising taxation. Zohran Mamdani is saying, hey, look, if you're not up to code, we're not just going to say you can't get a certificate to rent. We're going to take your property.
Yeah, so this was all part of Mayor Mamdani's campaign that got him elected here. Under the law, though, it is possible for the city to seize private property. Last year, the city seized a building from an owner who owed nearly $28 million in taxes and fines. Now, that was turned over to a nonprofit that worked with the tenants. But Mamdani's...
Oh, there we go. The nonprofit, the 501c3 mafia. I knew they'd come into play at some point.
Housing policy is raising some concerns here with New Yorkers, fearing that this could lead to a dangerous path towards Marxism. Critics point to comments that the city's tenant director made.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't he say that that's the agenda he was coming in? Why act surprised now? I will say this. Zohran Mamdani was not at all shy about espousing the fact that he is an adherent of socialism.
Weaver, she says that property ownership is racist. Made Sia Weaver, she says that property ownership is racist.
This is one of Mamdani's. This lady is one of Mamdani's housing authority officials, and you just heard him say she believes that property ownership is racist. Bet you weren't expecting that if you are a person of color, right, who happens to own their home.
People like home ownership because they like control, and that's been perverted by like deep racism and deep classism in our societies.
No, ma'am. People like home ownership because it allows them to build and transfer equity. It also allows them to stabilize that portion of their living expenses that go to housing. Because unlike rent, which in most cases annually increases, a mortgage one day will disappear. Now there is a camp that says, "Oh, but you still got to pay property taxes." Well, that's something that you can take up with your local jurisdiction. And I, for one, am an advocate of people who have paid off their mortgage and retired no longer paying property taxes. Governments need to do a better job of living within their means. But it is true that your mortgage payment will disappear after a while. And unless you refinance or have some sort of adjustable rate mortgage, you can rely on your mortgage being a stable part of your overall expenses.
And why rent control is really important is because rent control alters the power dynamic between renters and who owns the building.
Who owns the building? So this young lady, by the way, her mom owns $1 million property in Tennessee or Kentucky, one of those states. But yeah, so it's classic socialism. Do as I say, not as I do. They're not going to put in the energy required to show people how to acquire their own home. They'd rather work through these 501c3s because these people are benefiting financially from that. Okay. And they'd rather seize property that people have gone out and worked hard to acquire. So, will socialism creep throughout the United States? Listen, New York City right now is a petri dish that's going to, I think, enlighten a lot of people. There is no place on this earth where socialism works well. In fact, the Chinese, who operate a socialist government, also operate a capitalist hybrid in terms of their economic system. So we'll see how this unfolds. I think we all know how it ultimately is going to pan out. Crime in New York City is up because the socialist Mamdani has decided to further defund the police department. So it's going the way we all expect, but America definitely needs to experience or witness this so that we can understand that the application is a far cry from the theory.